Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's Shop Talk. My name is Chantel Bartlett, and I'm the manager of member engagement programs with SME. And I will be the facilitator for today's Shop Talk, where we will address the diversity of career pathways. You will see that we are joined by a varied group of individuals who do many different and unique things, and maybe even came to the industry in a unique way. So I just want to go over a couple housekeeping notes. We do ask that all of our attendees keep themselves muted, but we do highly encourage you to use the chat box throughout today's program. Please feel free to share your background and ask any questions. For any post-event questions, please feel free to email SME membership@sme.org. And I'm very thrilled and appreciative of being joined today by Matt Clegg, Mike Bell, Melanie Lang, John Cranston, and Zach Loeb. So before we get started today, I'd like to have our panelists give a really brief introduction of themselves. And so I'm going to kind of go in the way that I see everybody on my screen. So I'm going to start with Matt because you're the first one in my view.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. Matthew Clegg, originally from the Pacific Northwest, Seattle chapter, was born and raised in that area and went to school at Central Washington University. Got two different degrees. So I have a music performance degree, which hangs on the wall right here. And then I have my industrial engineering degree, which hangs out in here. And I use both of them fairly often. So my day job, I work for Dassault Systems SolidWorks as a community and user advocacy manager of 3 different global programs. Altogether, it's about 700 people. It's a ton of fun. The SME hat that I wear, I also now serve as member council chair-elect. So we get together several times a year and review the organization and how we can keep improving the member experience for all of you. It's an absolute thrill. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Matt. Melanie.
Hello, everyone. This is Melanie Lang. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Form Alloy. We design and manufacture metal additive manufacturing systems. And my background is actually in aerospace engineering. So talk about a slight shift into manufacturing that I'll be happy to get into. But I spent the first 15 years of my career in aerospace and defense, primarily at Lockheed Martin. I got out of that and founded Form Alloy in 2016, which is when I first became acquainted with and joined SME. And now I also am part of I'm a tech advisor for the additive manufacturing technical community for SME as well. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Melanie. John.
My name is John Cranston. I am currently the principal research scientist / engineer at Auburn University. I am the founder of a program called Bird Incorporated. I started 30 years ago, engaging STEM experiences with students all across the state of Alabama. I've talked to over 20,000 kids in the last 30 years, and my next goal is the next 2 years is to reach 28,000 students. My most amazing thing is from where I start, I'll tell later, but I ended up working on the James Webb Space Telescope, which you all, if you're astronomy buffs, you're seeing the most amazing pictures and actually questioning whether the Big Bang actually happened when it did. So to be a part of that is awesome. I spent 14 years of my life on it.
That's so cool. Mike Bell.
Hey, everybody. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. My name is Michael Bell. I'm a founder of a small manufacturing engineering consulting company. It's actually just me at the moment here in Rancho Cordova, just east of Sacramento. I've been in manufacturing for 14 years, graduated from Sac State University. And I've found my passion in manufacturing as early as 10 or so, playing Legos with my siblings. Didn't really know what manufacturing was or what the extent of it at the time, but just fell in love with it when I started working on Formula SAE, race car club at Sac State. And that really sparked my passion for manufacturing. Been part of other committees with SME for about 8 years now, really focusing on helping chapters be easier to manage, but also networking as well, making that easier. Thank you.
Thank you. And Zach.
Hey everybody, my name is Zach Loeb. I'm a third generation SME member. My background, I graduated from UCF with a degree in environmental engineering. I work actually at Clay County Utility Authority in the Jacksonville area of Florida. I work heavily in water production and advanced water and wastewater treatment methods. So nice to meet everybody, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Zach. And also for those of you in the audience, please feel free to share us in the chat box a little bit about you. Are you a student, emerging professional, seasoned expert, and what role do you have in the manufacturing industry? So let's start our conversation. Can you share a bit about your background and how it led to your current role in manufacturing? And did you always want to go into manufacturing? So I will start, Matt, because I know that wasn't your initial direction.
It wasn't. The Cliff Notes version of this incredible journey would sound something like this. Always wanted to be an orchestral musician since I was a little kid. And I went all the way through competing nationally, all these honor programs, everything, got to college, got in the music program at Central, and then the economy did one of these. Wasn't a great year in about 07, 08. Had to retool my ideas on how I could provide for myself and future family. And I was faced with the reality that the arts were not going to be doing great for a while. So I finished my music degree, had some great but difficult conversations with my music advisor, and ended up right next door in industrial engineering technology. And had the confidence to make that leap because I had always loved taking stuff apart, cars, lawnmowers, you name it. I spoke the language of machines, always have. And Legos, I'm sure you're going to hear lots of people mention Legos. They get some free advertising today. Just loved building stuff and redesigning things and rebuilding things. It just really spoke to me. So that's the direction I went, and got myself a math tutor because there's not much math going on at the level of an engineer inside of an orchestra pit. There is some though, but I won't bore you with that detail. And got myself through that and found SME. So this year actually marks 10 years for me with SME. I started out as a student member, and that combined with faculty advisors gave me the framework to assemble a new career path that I had never envisioned until the workforce around me demanded that I do that. So it was the strength of that community, the faculty. I got a plan together, graduated, went to some job fairs, and found my way in heavy equipment with John Deere, and got to take apart logging machines out in the middle of the woods in Washington as part of my job shot. It was a blast. So it was nothing I expected doing. I still play in orchestras, jazz bands, of all sorts. I've been able to keep that as a part of my life, but it was a major pivot. But it was the community I had surrounded myself with that made it possible. It was nothing I would have had the confidence or the experience to do on my own.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Zach, you come from a background of family history, so I'm guessing you knew you wanted to go into manufacturing. You're muted. Yeah.
It's very interesting. Kind of weird too, but mostly interesting. So my grandfather was a member of SME, and he really did a lot of outreach, and he participated a lot, even going on into his older age. He had a machine shop he worked in, and my brother and my dad and I, when we would visit him, we would go to his machine shop in his garage. My dad also worked on all kinds of different manufacturing stuff, and he helped work on the space shuttle program at NASA. And my brother, he's a computer engineer, and he works on things that he can't tell me. So that's that's cool too. And I always had a background in kind of the environmental side, which is something that, kind of gets missed a lot, or not, maybe not missed, but one thing that I really enjoy, and one thing that I find has been very interesting in the past few years too, is kind of like redefining, what is manufacturing. Even the water that comes out of your sink, when you wash your hands or brush your teeth, that all can undergo some very serious processes and treatment methods, and or the water that comes out of your sprinklers. A lot of that is actually, depending on where you live, wastewater that's undergone very intricate and complicated treatment processes, and is manufactured and then sold back to you, the consumer, at a price. So I always knew that I wanted to work with water, and especially in a way that got to interact and touch as many different sectors as it can. And one thing that's really cool about water and wastewater treatment side of manufacturing is you have the waste side, which there's always unique ways to find reuse for that waste. For example, reuse irrigation water coming from wastewater, or you have different industrial wastes where it can undergo different treatment processes, and then you can reuse that industrial waste for a different processes. So it's a very interesting kind of how I came to it, and kind of tried to bridge between the environmental side, and also with the background I have from my family, pushing me into manufacturing. So I could go on about it forever. So, feel free to cut me off whenever, but it's very cool getting to work and interact with every single kind of sector of manufacturing.
Well, we'll definitely come back, because I can only imagine how incredibly busy you have been with the past couple hurricanes. So, John, I'm going to go to you next, please.
Thank you. I guess I have to go genetically back in history, because I come from 5 generations of inventors and manufacturing. It started in the apple country of Eastern Oregon, and my great-great-grandfather came up with an idea for how to make a reusable apple box. And so he had that idea, and he designed the machines, and Cranston Machinery Company is now in its 5th generation of making industrial equipment for the pulp industry mainly, but lifting and moving cargoes from the international docks and all kinds of stuff. So I guess there's something genetically in me. Now let's get to my story. In 1990, I got my first patent. So I called my dad, who has dozens of patents, and he was living in Finland at the time, running his new business called Cranston Eagle. And I called him up and said, "Hey, Dad, I'm finally at Cranston." And he goes, What do you mean?" I go, "I finally got a patent. Doesn't that make me an official Cranston?" So that being said, my education didn't indicate that I actually had that ability. I was always interested in art, and that my dad was a good artist. He was my great grandfather's patent artist, and that's how he got his first job when I was born. And so I was always interested in art, and pursued that all the way through middle school, high school, and even on. But as to my friend Matthew, that we called him starving artist at the time. So I go, that isn't going to work. So I decided I better go back to college. I was in the military, so I had a GI Bill. So I went back the second time. I started in 69, started back again in 73, dropped out again, started in 82, 85, 87, and finally finished getting a degree in 1990 in business, because I thought I was shorthanded in the math and science. But my patents are in chemistry. I have 4 of them, and I make materials and processes that fly in space.
That's so awesome. Melanie, I'll go to you.
All right. Well, like I mentioned, my background was in aerospace engineering. That's my undergrad degree is in aerospace engineering, and my master's degree is in system architecture. And I wanted to be an aerospace engineer pretty much as long as I could remember. When I was a little kid, I also, like John, had an affinity for space and looking up at the stars, and wondered how to get there, and if there would ever be tourism for space and all that. And so I've always kind of had a love and an interest for, how things work from that perspective. But when you are studying aerospace engineering, it's really interesting because there was a lot of emphasis put on the design and the requirements and orbital mechanics, and different types of propulsion and all of that, and very little, at least when I was in school, on the manufacturing side. So you can design and dream up all kinds of things, but you have to be able to make it as well. And although our senior design project touched on that slightly, it was very light on making things that actually worked. And and then even as part of the master's program, it was as a system architect, you're kind of looking at systems of systems and requirements, and kind of how all the different pieces and parts go together. But once again, very light on how do you actually make this thing? What manufacturing processes will be used, and is it even possible to make this?
Yeah.
So fast forward into my career, I stayed very light on manufacturing. I had to understand it a little bit more as my career progressed, but I didn't really understand how things were made to a great extent until I got into 3D printing as a hobbyist. I thought it was very interesting. There was people starting to do things in fashion tech, and that's what introduced me to really getting into manufacturing and 3D printing was, as a hobbyist, hey, this is kind of cool. You can make devices that you can embed in clothing that can read your emotion, and you can make jewelry with it. And so I started just kind of playing around with a 3D printer at my house about it's been about 15 years ago now. So, as I was doing that and kind of learning, okay, how things are made and the types of materials you need to make things and how long it takes to make things, I continued down my path as an aerospace engineer until I started realizing that there was a need in the industry for things that could be manufactured, either more locally at the point of need or on demand, because it's hard sometimes in a large aerospace system to be able to predict what will break, when it will break. Excuse me, where it will be needed. And that's really what turned on the light bulb to me, that if you can develop an additive manufacturing process where you can deliver and create parts, where they're needed, when they're needed, there could be a huge gap that could be filled. And so I branched out in 2016 and started Form Alloy, and now I live and breathe manufacturing, because not only do we have to understand additive manufacturing, but we have to be able to understand all the traditional manufacturing as well, because many times after you 3D print something or use this process to repair, there's still going to be some type of finishing process to it. You might need to use an EDM to cut it off a build plate. It might need to be machined. It might need to have a heat treatment applied. So it's been a great experience, kind of unlocking the world of manufacturing through my hobby in 3D printing that started 15 years ago.
Very cool. I love that idea about the what can be put into fashion that senses your emotions. That's really awesome. Mike Bell.
Everybody. Sorry, I'm on camera. I'm in the middle of a cafe trying to move around. Can y'all hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
So yeah, I mean, I have 3 siblings, so 4 kids in 5 years. We're all 1 year apart, and my dad was in the Army, so we moved around every 3 years. And so with my siblings, I got to a point where I started tearing apart all the Lego sets that came in as kits, and then putting together Legos for all kinds of random stuff. And my role was shopkeeper. I was the guy that built all the airplanes, the carriers, the little spaceships, and then sold that with the little shiny Lego pieces with my siblings. So I got used to that idea of being creative and putting things together without structure, but just seeing what happens. So it's, early on, I realized there is an interesting blend of art and science when it comes to manufacturing that really sparked my interest. But I didn't commit to career manufacturing at the time. I didn't know what it was. I didn't really understand the extent of it, what it could become. And so but I was interested in math, and I've always been good at math. So I went towards the engineering route. In high school, we actually did have a wood shop. As I'm thinking about it recently, I went to high school in Puerto Rico. We had a wood shop there. We used AutoCAD and built little cabinets, and that was fun. But again, at that point, I still didn't understand that this could be a career or what it could turn into. And when I graduated, went to senior year in Paso Robles. So went from Puerto Rico to Paso Robles, quite a culture shock. But in there, looking at all the degree opportunities, I saw mechanical engineering as a natural fit. But then when I transitioned to Sac State, first semester there, I got invited to participate on a Formula SAE club competition. So it's an open wheel style race car club. And they told me, oh, yeah, you can help design, manufacture, and race this thing. It's like, what? We can do that? So I did that for all 4 years of my undergrad and recognized that there was a huge increase in student participation on the second half of that project during the manufacturing and testing phase. Design is cool and awesome and all that, but getting hands on a machine and being part of that process of turning raw material into finished goods, something about that just sparked a lot of people's interest. And so that's why I started shifting my career towards more as product design and prototyping, but for helping that bridge of ideation to finished product. And so that's where I'm started with my business, Symbio. And I started off in my garage. Again, when I graduated, I went to work as a design engineer, production engineer. For those engineers know, it's a lot of paperwork, project management, research, parts, or specs, but not a lot of opportunity to get hands on machines and equipment. So I started off with the mill and lathe in my garage, then transitioned to a larger shop and just got more toys and more capabilities. And it's been fun. It's been a fun journey since then. But now I'm realizing that I have a passion for keeping these old machines alive and retrofitting them. So that's where I'm starting to shift my focus, is to starting to blend into controls engineering, a little bit of software development to really hook up old machines to new data access systems, or retrofit an old machine with a new controller, or integrate some robotic arm or whatnot. But that's the kind of I see that when it comes to manufacturing, the opportunities are expansive and exciting, and there's a lot of niches that can be filled for everybody. So that's, yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Mike, I'm going to stay with you.
Okay.
My colleague Tony asked in the chat box, how are you sharing your passion to help steer the next workforce to manufacturing and engineering pathways?
So taking a step back, when I graduated at Sac State, I actually continued to be an instructor there. So I've been teaching, what is that now, 14 years at the university level, also at the college level. And so as I was working in industry, I also moonlit as an instructor and volunteering as a officer for a local SME chapter here in Sacramento. So the blend of all of that experience led me to realize that there's a huge gap on establishing bridges from the general community into manufacturing career paths. And actually, my last role working with a client just last year, I represented them as workforce development director. So my role was to really tap into these underserved, untapped communities, and to first excite them on what manufacturing is and what the capabilities are. And the one thing that really was a low-hanging fruit and an easy lift was to bring 3D printers to career fairs or outreach events. People heard about 3D printers, people can see the videos, but just seeing an automation machine build something right there in front of their eyes was enough to say, yeah, that's interesting, I want to learn more. Or even if they weren't interested as a career, they knew somebody that may have been interested in that. So I continue encouraging my colleagues in the local city here in Rancho Cordova to participate at outreach events, to open up their shops for tours, A lot of these people have never seen a manufacturing facility or don't really understand what that is. So just exposure and hands-on engagement, that's really the key element to increasing the interest in manufacturing before people can even commit to it. They don't know about it. They don't know that's something they can commit to.
John, I know for a fact you do a ton in this area, so I'll let you go next.
Thank you. I guess what really started to develop this was when I was working at NASA in the 80s on the shuttle program. I was actually getting my first patent on something that flew in space on the external tank. And at that same time, the mechanical engineering class at UAH, University of Alabama, Huntsville, mechanical engineering professor had reached out to NASA to learn about using composite materials for a college engineering project they had. It was called the Human Powered Vehicle, and it was a recumbent bicycle. And they were trying to beat the world record set by DuPont and some professional bike rider. So I decided to be involved in the project. I was working with the materials that they were interested in, and I volunteered my time to help them. That was in 1984. So we worked on a human powered vehicle. We set a land speed record from Los Angeles to DC. We won a trophy. Then we designed composite rebar for the concrete canoe, which was a national competition on the college level. We won 4 national championships. And then after that, I pulled those guys together to pull another team together for NASA, develop a racing wheelchair for the 1992 Paralympics. We had a gold medalist from then. So what I realized was I don't only have a passion for engineering and making stuff like Michael and Melanie and Zachary and Matthew have all said, but I wanted to pass on what I was learning to somebody else. So I did this all voluntarily. So I've been doing it ever since 1984. Currently, I've actually had a meeting today before I came on here with the Boys and Girls Clubs, and we are now going to team together to help take my program to inspire Boys and Girls Clubs across North Alabama for STEM and manufacturing jobs.
Awesome. Melanie, what do you guys do to kind of foster the future of industry?
Yeah, well, I think I have a lot of personal involvement in the in the community and some different organizations that do that, and then we do some things as a company as well. So as a company, we have a very robust internship program. We've had interns as young as high school age with school approval, of course, and then college age, and then even post degree where someone might be slightly pivoting. And so we bring them in and as an intern at first to do some of the training and just sort of assessment of skills. And I can say a huge percentage of our team actually came from that internship program, whether it be just a single semester or, oftentimes they'll stay with us, as they finish up their degree, and then we'll make them a full-time offer and they'll come work for us full-time. So we've had great success in filling and building out our team through our internship program. And many of the candidates that we get are local, but not always. Sometimes they're coming in from other locations as well. So it's been a huge benefit, to us, and of course to some of our team members. One of our team leads on our production actually came to us right out of high school and spent a summer interning with us, and he's been with us ever since. So just a lot of great experience there. Personally, there's a couple organizations that I'm involved with. One is Women in 3D Printing. That was one of the organizations that I joined when I first got into this industry. I knew very little about manufacturing. I had very little context in any type of manufacturing, let alone additive manufacturing. And it was an organization I was able to join and network, and then started a chapter here in San Diego. At the time, there was a chapter in Paris, I believe, and San Francisco. Both which were just a little too far to travel to from San Diego. So we do now have a chapter here locally that we can use for networking. And if someone's looking for a job, it's a great way to get in. SME, of course, does a great job on the education side. Oftentimes at the trade shows we attend will be a student-friendly booth or part of even the student, if they have a student summit, kind of separate from the event, just to expose students to what we do and hopefully get them excited about, if not what we do, something in manufacturing. I've done some work with Girl Scouts doing virtual presentations internationally to expose young participants to 3D printing. And then things like Society of Women Engineers, I stay involved in that. And then AMT, the Association for Manufacturing Technology, has some good programs as well. So I just think it's about staying in contact with the community, networking, and just making yourself available to inspire the next generation.
Awesome. Matt, I'm going to go to you next. Can you tell us
Okay.
how your education and training shaped your career and how you've applied both specialized and transferable skills?
Sure. This has evolved with time. And if you'd asked me this question right after I had graduated with a music degree, I would have no idea what to tell you. But luckily, we're here today. So, in the beginning, I saw music and engineering as two siloed kind of vats of knowledge in my head. I had to give up one to pursue the other, and I kind of had to, it wasn't fun to live with it that way. And then I got into manufacturing and went on industry tours with the student chapter, professional chapter, and started to see the diversity of how systems and machines work. And it's a mechanical symphony. There are teams of people that rehearse. There are sounds of machinery when they're working properly and when they're not. There's a huge auditory component of manufacturing that I had no idea was out there. Welding, I worked as a weld fabrication support engineer. Similar with the welding processes, there are sounds that are good and bad when you're welding. And just having the musical vocabulary made me just weird enough to be interesting, to talk about mechanical systems and having that artistic background. Several people on this call have already talked about beauty and design. That is absolutely a thing. I went hardcore into SolidWorks when I learned that in college. And the main skill set that I carried through my entire career was 3D modeling. And the music side gave me appreciation for highly refined beauty, artistic value, and balancing that with product design and a number of different positions I found myself in, even in interviews, pitching that skill set to a panel of people over and over again, and realizing I had an artistic language that made me different and memorable, and equating a lifetime of musical study and experience, of leading and organizing teams of peers, project management skills. All this stuff is inside of music. I just didn't know how to translate it yet. So that light bulb went off was when I wrote the article for my alma mater, Central Washington University. Did a similar one for SME as well, about this, about how you can fuse those two backgrounds. And I would offer a bunch of the people in this call probably played an instrument at some point. It's super common in these circles. When I was at member council this last weekend, I discovered quite a few people still play. Some of us joked about picking up instruments at the next meeting. So I always encourage fine arts, no matter what you're studying as a major. I really think it helps round out how you present yourself to the world, how you articulate ideas, how you refine those ideas. Huge fan. So I'll leave it at there for now. I know we have limited time. I could go on all day about this. It's a huge soapbox for me, so thank you.
Zach, can you tell us a little bit about your education and training and how it's shaped your career? Did you always want to get involved with water, or was it more your focus on environment and then you?
So it might get a little technical here, but I'll try to keep it very Florida man vibes as well. So I guess to start my kind of pathway towards water, I grew up fishing on the river and watching rockets go off, which is a pretty good way to grow up. Definitely very inspiring. And my house would shake when the shuttle would go off. So it was always like a whole thing. Everyone in the neighborhood would come out and watch it. Kind of very good community bonding exercise. But fishing on the river, well, I guess I'll tell the whole story. One of my favorite fish to go fishing for is tarpon. And there was a record caught tarpon in the Keys, and I was reading a newspaper article, and I'm 12 years old at the time. So this is 16 years ago. And I read the article talking about black bass feminizing, so I read the article of the tarpon, and I look to my right and I see another headline for an article that says black bass feminizing widespread. And it talked about how 1 in 5 black bass in the St. Johns River was developing intersex tissue due to waste, essentially, that was getting into the water. I could get super technical on all that background, but very long story short, I wanted to come up with a way to prevent these compounds from entering our waterway and come up with processes to, I guess, treat, without going into, again, too much technical jargon here, but to treat these compounds at the source or at the wastewater facility. So it's kind of, there was a problem that I identified, and I went into it, and then I went on to, do research all the way through college, and did scholarships and patents based off of that research, and got my first publication, which helped me get into college. So it just kind of trickled down from there, identifying a problem that I was passionate about, and then tying that into, okay, well, what's the real world scenario, and how do you fix it realistically? I mean, there's all kinds of problems out there in the world that need solving, but I think what's really interesting and unique about this group is it does take a certain type of person to think, well, how is it feasible? For example, with global warming, we can pull carbon dioxide out of the air with machines, and then take that carbon dioxide and turn the carbon from it and potentially make diamonds from it. I mean, you can do some really crazy stuff if you dream it, but does that mean that it's economically feasible? And a part of sustainability is it has to have an economic sustainable aspect to society. It can't just be a good thing. It has to be a good thing that you can actually do and benefits everyone. So that's kind of what put me on that track. I didn't always know the field of environmental engineering is relatively new. It's kind of a mix between civil, chemical, and operational engineering, as well as industrial engineering. It was a heck of a time in college taking all the different classes, I will tell you that. And the PE exam was not fun. But it's very interesting. And a matter of fact, I actually have a second bachelor's in anthropology as well, because I did my minor in medical anthropology and the impact of essentially the environment and different conditions, including chemicals and the ways, for example, cooking food and how that developed our brains, and then how radiation helped us human beings evolve in certain ways in different parts of the world. It's just a whole, like I said, I have a degree in it, but I ended up actually getting the full bachelor's in it because you actually can save money because of overage hours if you get the full degree than you do if you get the minor. It's very weird, and write your governors or someone, congressman, I don't know, but but the policies for it are very weird. And now I'm actually pursuing my MBA, my Master's of Business, at the University of South Florida while I work full time too. And I consider getting a master's in environmental engineering or pushing it down a different path as well. But I feel like I have enough technical side, and I just love to learn a lot as it is, that it would be beneficial to me to kind of get that experience in, leadership and management and business operations, and system operations on the business side of that. So my education is kind of all over the place, mostly also because I love to learn, and I know everyone here also is the same as I am. So I know I'm in good company. But it's definitely been one of those things where I feel that path was already there, and I just kind of was just taking one step at a time, but it was there the whole time. I just had zero idea or very little visibility on it. So, just kind of pursuing what's you're passionate about. And then you look back and you're like, wow, okay, I didn't see that coming, but it makes so much sense.
That's kind of a good transition for our next topic. So clearly you saw benefit in furthering your education to obviously further your career. What strategies have you found effective for your career growth and development within manufacturing?
That's a really good question, and I wish I had known that all throughout my life. One of the most important things to do, and I will preach this from the mountaintops, is network. We're really blessed to have LinkedIn and so many different ways to stay connected now. I wish I did that starting at age 13, because there were people that I, presented research with or worked with, and now they're, multi-millionaires or billionaires doing TED Talks. And it's just, well, maybe not billionaires, but they're up there. And it's kind of like, man, I wish I kept you on LinkedIn, because I have a feeling, or kept your phone number, because I have a feeling it's going to be very hard to get it now. But networking and staying connected, asking for help, everyone has something that they can teach you. And a lot of times you just have to be willing to, if you listen, you're going to find interesting things that you're going to want to learn more about. And that's kind of the nature of how we are, as a group, is we always want to learn. And when you kind of think about everyone has something to teach you, it makes it a lot easier to really dedicate that time into making sure you keep up your networking, you keep up your relationships with people, because that's just so important on your career path. Figure out where you belong in it, where you're going, and so forth. So I guess that's one of my big strategies that I would recommend is stay connected and keep those relationships going. Text everyone Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, keep everyone in mind.
Matt?
Completely agree, Zach. I'm a touch more old school in some ways. Business cards,
Mm-hmm.
I've got a stack, and you never know, like Zach said, who's going to go where. Lots of people use LinkedIn. It's a tool, but I don't see it being the end-all be-all. Is the ability of an engineering type, especially, to walk in a room of 200 people and go hustle your skills. You can't really do that on LinkedIn. Some may argue with me, but it's a skill you have to be a marketable engineer. It's something I'm still working on and have since college. Another great way to do this that's a little more friendly and smaller scale is with your local SME chapters. If there's one there, hit them up. There's the link in the chat. If you don't have one, start one. That's an even better career growth tool, starting a nonprofit professional society chapter, leading meetings, arranging tours. When I was chair of Seattle, the business card stack I got, the phone numbers I got from leading tours, being that primary contact on behalf of this massive organization to that business I'm selling this opportunity to, I got to learn who's the HR manager of these companies, because I'm also selling the opportunity of students from that student chapter to supply them with entry positions. That was part of our tours. And I had that person's phone number. They knew me. Several of those people I would call when I wanted a job. So you never know where that stuff goes. I want to leave time for others to comment, especially,
Yep.
John and Melanie. This is a really big topic for us.
Yeah, Melanie, I'm going to go to you next. What strategies have you found effective for career growth and development?
I mean, I think nothing really beats networking and personal relationships. And being involved in community, in your nonprofits, attending conferences, and continuing to develop yourself, and learning new things and connecting with people are key. Most opportunities that have come up and most things I've been inspired by have been through something I've seen someone else do or hear of something else. I mean, that's really how I got into 3D printing, as I started hearing about people 3D printing jewelry and fashion tech. And that inspired me to kind of take a different route and now do 3D printing for aerospace, which is, more in the core of, my passionate background. So network like crazy and never stop.
John.
Yeah, thank you. This is a big one. Okay, I look at our panel here. I think I'm old enough to be everybody's dad. So, to your point, Matthew, I have so many business cards. I have to have practically a librarian to take care of them because I kept every one of them since 1984. That's an engineering thing too. But networking definitely. But along with that, the networking and the opportunities of the people that allow you to work with them that are like-minded, that you do excellent work. And I'll just make one point of that. When I developed the program, Bird Incorporated, to go into schools and set up a factory and do it all in 50 minutes at grade schools, I was at the University of Alabama in Huntsville as a research scientist, and one of my colleagues there was getting his master's degree in industrial engineering. We parted ways about 8 years later. I went into business for myself, and he continued on in education. He ended up as the chair of the industrial engineering department at Auburn University. He called me last summer and goes, "Hey, John, I got this contract with the Department of Defense, and they have a problem, and I think you can solve it." That was 30 years ago. It pays off. Do good work, make good relationships, and network as crazy as you can.
Mike.
That
Bill?
story belongs on a poster, John.
Yeah.
And I consider you a cool dad. So don't
Thank
worry.
you.
Mike, Mike, for some reason your mic isn't working. No, I'm not hearing you for some reason. Oh. Nope. I don't even see you having a mic anymore, actually. Yeah. Okay. We'll kind of move on. We'll come back. Yeah. Okay. John, I'm going to stick with you. How have you seen the manufacturing industry evolve over the years? And what new opportunities do you think it now offers?
Wow. I'm the dinosaur, so let me tell you. So I was going to go back in 8th grade. It was all the boys went to shop, and the girls went to home ec. In 8th grade, I had to learn how to do mechanical drawing. Do you want?
No, I'm just telling Mike. Mike, I hear you all of a sudden.
So we had to learn mechanical drawing. Rulers, compasses, that kind of stuff. I learned how to do mechanical drawing when I was in 8th grade. I have used that talent ever since. I know how to do CAD a little bit, but I do it by hand all the time. There you go. I picked that skill up in 8th grade. So I believe in lifelong learning. I found out what my interests were, and then I hung around people that were good at that, and they let me be a part of their team. And I just have learned and learned. I'm 73 years old, and I am just a sponge to learn stuff. I'd really like to spend some time with Melanie in 3D printing, because I did stuff for NASA on 3D printing and processes that I developed back in the 90s. So I'm just interested in all kinds of stuff. Not sure about the water, but I sure want clean water, Zach.
Mike, Bell. Yep.
That's better. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right, I'm having to play games.
microphone through my laptop, audio through my headphones. It's weird. We'll make it work. Just to go back to that last question real quick. The strategies that work for me specifically, it's kind of my greatest strength and weakness. Not being afraid to fail. And any opportunity that came my way that had a high risk, I would raise my hand and say, yeah, let me try that. But in that process and that experience, realize that when there's high risk or when there's opportunities for failure, there's also less competition or less people willing to pursue that. So that was very beneficial for me, my career growth, and ability to combine my networking skills and networking or network itself, and then put myself in a position to try new techniques, new processes, play with new equipment. And on that note, and on the context of evolution, I'm seeing an interesting dynamic unfolding with the legacy folks in manufacturing kind of aging out, or in management positions or ownership positions, being kind of resistant, almost outright resistant to evolving their business operations or processes. And so it's an interesting, like I said, paradigm shift happening as we speak, because they're also at the same time, when I say resistant, I mean resistant for them to learn personally. Like they aren't in a point in their careers where they want to learn new software or new technology, but recognize the potential impact it has on their business. So that opens up opportunity for somebody like me and others and that are interested in integrating new tech or new software, and really focusing on highlighting the data behind their decision to make improvements. So I see a huge opportunity for data-driven decisions using technology as a kind of engine to drive that transition.
Thanks, Mike. So I'll stick with you actually, Mike. So we have just a few minutes left. And so I'm going to go around our panel and ask, what advice would you give someone who's interested in pursuing a career in manufacturing?
For me, I see everything around us is manufactured. Every single thing that we can look at. So for me, it's more about keep it simple. Just what is somebody naturally interested in, and find out how that's made. Somebody mentioned that in the chat box earlier about if they watch How It's Made. It's a fascinating show. I love it. But that concept of clothing, food, beverages, construction, roadways, everything is manufactured. So start with the passion. Start with what you as an individual are passionate about, just naturally, organically. And then I think Matt talked about breaking tearing apart devices or contraptions, and then just figure out, okay, how do you dissect and analyze how that's made, and seeing if there's any aspect of that sparks your interest, and then go from there.
Melanie, I'm going to go to you next.
Yeah, well, speaking of how it's made, you will find Form Alloy on an old episode of How It's Made, where we had the crew come in and we showed how our 3D printers were made back when we were just getting started. I was actually trying to look up the episode number, but I couldn't find it in time. So if you ever find it, that's me in the video as the technician and the machine operator and all the different roles, because we were about a 2.5 person company at the time. But yeah, I mean, I think obviously, yeah, I know. I was trying to look it up really quick since Mike mentioned it. I would say, yeah, follow your passion, and that might not be what you end up doing, but it could inspire you to go another way. Like I was interested in how you make jewelry with 3D printing, and now I'm back to my roots as an aerospace engineer and, printing things for the aerospace industry. And then also just get involved in one of the local organizations. Look for a local chapter of SME and some of their events, a Women in 3D Printing event, Society of Engineer event. If you're an aerospace AIAA, just look for any type of association that is local to you and show up at an event and start your networking.
Matt?
I'm right there with Melanie. I don't think there's a better way to understand manufacturing than going on an industry tour. You just got to see it. This is stuff you can't describe in an email or a LinkedIn post or anything short of actually being literally standing in the middle of it. I was at Fab Tech while they were setting up. So I've been working at SolidWorks here for about 3 years. And I walked into the trade show floor and I smelled manufacturing. Like there's a smell to coolant and oil, and it took me right back. I was nostalgic. It's like, oh, look at that. There's another thing I didn't realize I missed. But you don't get that any other way than going on a tour and seeing it, and the perpetual curiosity that you can keep, like John was saying, your entire career. It is baked into our industry. You have to be curious to be successful. I think everyone on this call would agree with me on that. Another thing is, if you're on the fence about manufacturing, oh, should I do it? Is it, there's so much passion involved with it. I think it's important that we exemplify that when we present. But I have an example here. It's a keychain that I made my first CNC class in college. We programmed it in Mastercam. And when I saw this thing get cut and I pulled it out of the jaws and I looked at it, I was like, holy cow, this is fun. I was just taught the skills to get an idea out of my head and into my hands. What else could I do? And it's been 10 years of that, and I wouldn't do anything different. And I'm super proud of our industry for giving those kind of people these kind of skills and the ownership behind it. I think it's one of the biggest selling points we have to anyone who's considering manufacturing.
John, advice you'd give to someone?
Yes, I would agree. That's why I do the program Bird Incorporated, the 50-minute factory. I bring the things that Matt talks about right into the classroom, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders, and I show them that they can, with their education even that low, I can give them a little bit of training and actually manufacture something. Every class, the thousands of kids go out of that class with a product that they help make. They thought about it. The business side, the engineering side, the manufacturing side. I give them the whole tamale all at one time in 50 minutes. And it's just exciting. They see something made. And I use this illustration when I first come in. I go, I'm here to talk to you about the exciting field of manufacturing. And I believe that there's a place for you, all of you in that field, whether it's art, music, Matt, it does not matter. I can show you how it's used in manufacturing. I show the artists the posters that they do of the James Webb Telescope out in space 1 million miles away. We hadn't been there yet, but they had the poster. Somebody designed that. The music that went along with the video that showed it flying in space was done by some musician, Matt. And the 3D printing and the materials that we use, Melanie and Michael, and all the water purification on the space program, all that, we do that in the factory. They smell this stuff. The foam that they use in there actually smells. They can smell it. They touch it. It heats up. It exotherms. It's a hands-on experience, and they don't forget it.
That's awesome, John. And Zach.
So kind of to reiterate a little bit of what everyone else has previously said, get involved and get exposed to as much as you can. Just get exposed to all kinds of different sections of what manufacturing is or could be. Go on group events, volunteer. I mean, a brewery tour all the time, that's a manufacturing process right there. And I think that's a great opportunity to learn more about manufacturing, is when you need to drink beer at the So you just find your way to expose yourself to as much as you can, learn as much as you can. And every time you see a new thing that you're exposed to, think about it, look at some of the problems, look at how things might be improved, and learn the processes. The more you do that, the more you'll be able to kind of explore how to begin your journey into manufacturing. And really what you'll find is how manufacturing is pulling you into it. So that's kind of my advice. Oh, look at you toured a whiskey distillery in South. See, there you go. It's a big shoes to fill, because I haven't done a whiskey distillery yet. So.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up. Thank you, everybody, Thank you, Matt, Melanie, John, Mike, Bell, and Zach Loeb, so much for joining us today. I want to just quickly ask I do have a favor before everybody signs off. Would you please fill out a really quick survey for us? Tell us how we did. Was today's program enjoyable? Did you learn something from it? Was it everything that we said it was going to be? We're always looking to improve, and your feedback would greatly help us. And we have more of these programs coming up. We are still in the midst of Manufacturing Month. So October 30, I can't believe it's almost the end of October. So next week we are going to talk about, next week, October 23rd actually is our next program. We will be having a one-on-one chat. Tony Neary, many of you who chatted with her in the chat box today, will be interviewing and discussing having a conversation with Kara Branch. She is the CEO of Black Girls Do Engineer. Then October 30 is our next shop talk about women driving manufacturing forward, followed by actually I'm going out of order. October 29th is an additive manufacturing coffee chat. And then the October 30 shop talk. And then finally, we will wrap up the year or the month, excuse me, with November 6th fireside chat with Shonali Ditz. She is the founder of Spark Shop and works with youth in the Chicago area. And if any of you are not yet an SME member, I really encourage you to consider joining as an SME member. Today is just one of the many programs that we offer our members, and it's a great time to join as we are offering a 20% discount on signing up. Use the join code JOIN24 if you go to sme.org/join24. You'll find all the links for the programming and the survey in the chat box. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week. Take care. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Chantel.
Oh, it looks
Thanks,
like
everybody.
John, it looks like somebody, I'm going to connect you, Kristen, who is in Oregon.